So what we've already looked at is that the HR Analytics IBM Watson dataset, we've gone ahead and we've downloaded that. We've passed that dataset as a CSV to the pandas data frame. And within the pandas data frame, we see that there are different variables which are there. Now, one of them is the target variable, which is attrition, and rest of them are independent variables which will help us predict attrition. So whether a person attrites from our organization or doesn't attrite. But firstly, when we just get the data set and we upload that into the PDF of pandas, we don't necessarily know as to what are the different categories within the categorical variable. I for sure do not even know whether attrition has got just two categories or it's got more than two categories, whether business travel has got more than one category, which is the highest, which is the lowest, how am I supposed to measure against them. All these facts are not clear to me by just looking at the data frame. So what I need to do is I need to further explore the data frame, and for that I will go ahead and do some initial exploring. And this is seen over here. Okay, fine. So no, so this is how I would want to look at my data frame, which would display as a table on the Jupyter notebook. Otherwise, what it does is when I use the print command, it doesn't necessarily give me a very good display. So what I can do is I can split my command, the df head and the df tail, into two different say Jupyter notebook chunks. And once I split this command into two different chunks, I get to see the top 5 and the bottom 5 of my data frame. So going further with the exploration, what I have here is my primary target variable, so the attrition. So how many categories does this attrition have, and within those different categories, what is the number of people that fall within those two different categories, or within those segments, or within those classes, whichever way you want to understand that. And now when we run this, so it is df attrition. So within those square brackets, that string which is there, that is my column header, or the column label, or the variable label, which is attrition, of course. And then I have chained along with it, with that dot notation, value count. So whatever are the values, you show me those values, and you also show me the counts of those values. Further going down, of course, so over there we get to see no 1233, which means 1233 people have not attrited from the organization, they are still within the organization. And then I get to see yes for 237, and it also shows me that what kind of data type do I have over here. So the name is attrition, and the data type is that it's an integer, it's a 64-bit integer. Exploring the categorical variables. Now I have given different print commands. I have given a print space, then the asterisk and 90. What exactly does that mean? 90 spaces will be printed before this next print command is executed, and then I again have a print command in the 4th line. That is in my 5th chunk of code over here. The reason I do that is so that the formatting in the Jupyter notebook is slightly better, so it is not necessarily part of the code. You can absolutely exclude it. That is entirely up to you. So we look at categorical variable department and the value counts. So it is the same line of code. In place of attrition up there, I have now replaced that string with department. So it will give me the value counts for department, and similarly for business travel, for educational field, for work-life balance, all of these, I get these counts over here. So this is the output of my categorical variable, the department, which shows me that there are 3 departments. One is research and development, the other is sales, and then there's human resources. So the travel, then the next category that categorical variable that I'm looking at is business travel. And the value counts that I get over there are travel rarely, travel frequently, and no travel at all. So which is a non-travel this thing. Now depending on what an individual employee prefers, whether employee prefers traveling whole lots, employee prefers traveling once in a while, maybe say once in a month or once in a week, or not traveling at all. So I just don't prefer traveling at all. So depending on that, the employee will attrite or choose to attrite or look at some other organization for employment. And so that is the split that we have over there. Then the categorical variable education field, which is again very critical. So depending on the education background that I have within an organization, I will be given a certain kind of work. So of course that work-life balance or the satisfaction from work or engagement from work depends on your education background, whether you get the next promotion or not, whether you end up rising up the pyramid within that organization or not. All of those things depend on your educational field and your, what you've done. So what we have over the life sciences, medical, marketing, technical degree of some sort, or any other kind of miscellaneous education that you might have. We have, of course, human resources. There are 27 resources who have a human resources formal educational background. Then we have the ordinal variable work-life balance. And in case you want to understand what is the difference between a categorical variable and an ordinal variable, let me explain that to you. There are different categories in the first variable, that is department. There is research and development, there is sales, human resources, but these are not necessarily ordered in some manner. Research and development does not necessarily become a higher department just because it's R&D, or sales does not become the department which brings in the dollars just because it's the sales department. The human resources department does not necessarily come at the bottom because they've got less number of people. It is not that. But if you were to say that in a certain race, in a certain competition, there were three categories which were there. There was the number one category, the numero uno, the guys who won. Then there was a second category, and then there was a third category. So similarly, that will be a ordered categorical variable. So the ordinal variable, which is work-life balance, has got 4 different categories. Now those categories are 1, 2, 3 and 4. Now depending on, we'll see further within the data set, depending on what the employees prefer. So do they say, yes, I have a work-life balance, or they say, no, I do not have a work-life balance, or whichever way they go ahead and describe their status of work-life balance. These are different ordered categories. These are not just categories that do not matter necessarily. So of course it matters. If a person says 4, then the connotation is something else altogether. And the person says 1, then they mean something different. It's the opposite end of the spectrum. Whether they say it's a work-life balance situation or not will depend on how the scale is kind of structured, which is okay. So that is the difference between a categorical variable and an ordinal variable.